Yo, what's up, you frickin' nerds? So today I'm gonna show you how I turn this raw dog vocal.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
And with my new carefully crafted vocal technique, the 4 S's, Squish, Squeegee, Slime, and Smelly, I'll show you what all that means in a second. We're gonna turn it into this final, beautiful vocal production.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever...
Okay, so let's get into it. The first S, squish. When I say squish, I mean squish the vocal. Let's add in a vocal compressor. Right here I'm using the FET compressor by Softtube, one of my favorites for drum buses and vocal buses, and honestly anything. It sounds great. We have a medium attack, fast release, about a 6-to-1 ratio, and you'll see I'm crushing the vocal, also adding a smidge bit of saturation. Here it is, off.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
Gotta get out of bed. All right, compressor on.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do...
As you can see, it's crushing the vocal, keeping it even, giving it a little bit of impact because you can hear the ambience of the room behind the vocal, making it seem like it's a little bit more forward and a little bit louder in the mix. It is slightly louder, but that's not the point. The point is to increase the perception of loudness and also to keep everything even across the board. So, real quick side note here. I didn't produce this track. This was recorded somewhere else. I just did the mixing on this track. But if I was to record it, I probably would be compressing the vocals slightly on the way in, just like I am right now for this voiceover. Just so as we're tracking, there's a little less spikes as we're recording, and it's a little more even going across the board. As we stack vocals, things will get messy. So you're going to want to either get something to compress on the way in or always have a compressor running as you're tracking. At least that's what I do. You don't have to. I just feel like it helps. The next most important step is step 2. Squeegee the vocal. We need to make it clean. We need to cut out any lows. We need to get rid of any spikes on the S's. We need to make sure the vocal isn't harsh and it's pleasing to listen to. So the first thing I throw on every single time after the compressor is Pro Q. I like this compressor because as you can see when I play the vocal,
so what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
You can see the frequencies of the actual vocal, what needs to be taken out and what can be boosted to make the vocal sound better. So I usually take out a ton of low end. In this vocal, I ended up taking out anything below 126 hertz. That's pretty aggressive, but it's going to leave room for the bass. It's going to leave room for the kick drum. It's going to leave room for the entire mix to be louder because there won't be a bunch of stacks of vocals with a bunch of rumbling low end. Next, I'm going to tame the low end at around 200 hertz. I have this reactive compressor running here. At 200 hertz, when things start to spike, you're going to see it dip down in volume at 200 hertz.
So what do I do if...
It's really just on the louder, spikier parts of the vocal. On vocals like that, it's gonna spike it down a little bit and give it a little more impact because it's crushing it in the low end, bringing out the ambience of the room in that frequency. So I'm also boosting it slightly because the actual fundamental of the vocal I felt like could have had a little bit more low end. So not only is it crushing it in the low end, but it's also bringing up the fundamental of the actual present vocal in the front the whole time. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm boosting around 8K, which is a nice pleasing frequency for snare, kick, cymbals, anything you want to be up front, it's great. So I threw that on the vocals as well, around 8,212.2 hertz. I boosted it at 5.06 dB. Again, I'm not mixing the numbers, I'm mixing with my ears, which I always suggest you do. So here's the vocal without the compressor, and then I'll turn it on midway through.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head? What do I do?
So that's really bringing out a lot of the clarity into the vocal. Something else that I always do on vocals is I'll throw on de-essers. And there's another part to this vocal that I want to show you in a second, but de-essing is very important to make sure that there isn't buildup of that 10K, 12K, 14K frequency when you hit a S. So here's the de-esser. I'm just using a Linden Plugins 902 de-esser plugin by Plugin Alliance. As you can see here on the spectra graph, you'll see the S's being taken out. A lot of nerdy stuff going on right now. Let me play it for you.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head?
I kind of like to think of de-essers as more of just a compressor on the high end. It's just an intelligent compressor that's getting rid of only that sort of really specific frequency. Sometimes it's kind of cool to throw on cymbals as well. And then the last thing I like to do on Squeegee is I like to add one of my favorite plugins, Soothe. What Soothe does is it looks for any spikes in the frequencies that would be harsh and just ducks them down a little bit. And then you have some parameters here like attack, release, what the quality is, the sharpness of the actual spike, the selectivity of how much it's going to be taking in, and then you can also focus on what frequencies you want it to attack. So I'm going to show you what it is taking out first so you can really hear what it's doing.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do?
So as you can hear, there's a little bit more of the S's peeking through, and there's a little bit of honkiness in the vocal around like 200 to 400. Maybe that's because I added 200, but that's okay because it's really just taking out the harsh frequencies in that range. Okay, so that was everything in Squeegee, a very important step. The next very important step is slime. We're gonna stick everything together, we're gonna throw slime at it, and what I mean by that is we're gonna distort the vocal, tucking the vocal into the mix a little bit more so it doesn't just sound like it's recorded with a beautiful, clean vocal mic and you're just singing in your room and you just slap the vocal on top. It almost sounds like a cover. Adding distortion in a rock mix can really help blend in your vocal into the mix. So here's what I have going on. I have Decapitator.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head? What do I do if I don't see you again?
So depending on the song, you can get super aggressive with this.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
If this was the Foo Fighters, it would be cranked. But this is a little bit more of an indie pop punk mix, so it's blended in and it's sort of just rounding out the bottom end and gridding out the top end, blending it into the mix a little bit. So right there, with those first three steps, you can always have a great sounding, clean vocal that will work in any mix. But there's something else that really makes it special. You gotta make the vocal stink. So that brings us to step number 4, Smelly. We need these vocals to stink. They need to be special. I don't know why I chose Smelly. I was just running out of words that started with S and it kind of made sense for this. So I'm gonna show you now everything that I do to make the vocal production sound special. The first thing we're gonna do to make it sound special is by taking a note out of T-Pain's book and using auto-tune. We're not gonna go ham with this thing. We're just gonna keep it really light. We're gonna do the retune speed to about half. We're gonna add a ton of flex tune so it's barely noticeable in the mix.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
So the reason we do that is because we're gonna be adding in all these backing vocals on top of it, which are doubles and harmonies and low octaves and things of that nature. And when you stack all these vocals together, if the notes aren't clamped to the song to a certain degree, things are gonna start sounding messy. So as you can see here, we added auto-tune to every single vocal take here, and all of them together will sound very nice. Here we go.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head? What do...
So obviously that sounds awesome, but a good rule to follow is don't overtune your main vocals, and it's okay to overtune the backing vocals a little bit because they're tucked in anyway. Something I also like to do to backing vocals is if I have two of them, I'll spread them, one left, one right. So I'll show you right here.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
So those are the doubles and they're spread left and right, and then same deal with the harmonies.
So what do I do?
And then one more set of harmonies here.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed?
Something else that you might want to do with your backing vocals, with each set, meaning your doubles is one set, your harmony 1 is another set, and your other harmony is the other set in this example. What I like to do is the doubles, maybe I'll throw a room effect on it. So right here I have CLA Epic, and I have this fake drum room preset that I created, and it's blended in. The reason you're gonna wanna do that is so that when all these vocals are hitting, if you want it to sound big and you want it to sound like it's meant to be there, each vocal should be in its own part of its room and its own space in the mix, so nothing is climbing on each other as you're listening to the song. And on the other two harmonies, I don't have any room sound on it, but I'm not boosting any of the highs because I want it to be tucked in behind the lead vocal. So adding layers of vocals and giving them their own space is a great way to create a sick vocal production. The next thing I want to do is add my main vocal ambience. So I have my vocal verb here, and I'll play just the main vocal.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head?
So it's running from an aux bus from the main vocal into that vocal bus. I'm doing an aux bus because the backing vocals, I don't want it to be pumping in as hard. So there's a lot going on here. We have a delay, we have a short slap delay, we have a spreader through CLA Epic, we have a very short room with a pre-delay on it, which is almost kind of like a Rage Against the Machine, Green Day, Boulevard of Broken Dreams sound. And then last thing, we have this very long reverb at 3 seconds, just holding out the note into the next parts.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do?
So the last couple things that I do in a vocal mix, really giving it that special smell, is I'm adding a lot of automated reverbs and delays. This isn't your main vocal. These are reverbs and delays that spike up at very important parts in the song. So maybe it's the last line of a verse or the first line of a chorus. So I'm gonna show you what I have going on. Here's everything all together on that main vocal.
What a stupid, stupid thing to allow myself to think. What do I do? What do I do?
No, that's not a synth. That's Valhalla Shimmer running. This is a really cool reverb plugin that can get a little bit gnarly sometimes, but this is a really cool one that sort of just adds some overtones and some extra harmonies to the vocal on a really long reverb throw. So as you can see here, I have these automated buses that are running down to these channels, 15 to 15, 13 to 13. And then on the main vocal bus, 21, 22, which is activating right here, it's sending it to a delay, which is those echo vocals. So on the first reverb throw, I have just deverb, stock reverb, 4-second long, throwing at the end of vocals. I'll show you one more time how just that sounds, and then I'll show you the shimmer and the delay.
To allow myself to think, what do I do?
So really just use it sparingly on really special vocals. And then you have the shimmer.
To allow myself to think, what do I do?
Adding sort of that magic fairy dust on top of the mix. And then the last thing we have is this mod delay running from the all vocal track. So if I turn on all the vocals, it will be affecting all the vocals. Here we go.
To think, what do I do? What do?
Okay, so here's all the effects together.
So what do I do if I ever get out of bed? What do I do if I ever clear my head? What do
We have our lead vocal up front, we have our harmonies in the background, we have throwing delays and reverbs, and we have a backing vocal on top of that. I'm sorry, I just had to let that play through the end because it's really sick. So with those 4 steps, squishy, squeegee, slimy, smelly, you're always gonna have an awesome vocal. Now remember, there's no rules to mixing, of course, and you can interchange these however you like, and I really do encourage you to try new methods, because otherwise music won't keep progressing, and art won't keep progressing, and mixing is gonna get stale. But I think that this is a good start and a good base to make sure that your vocal mixes are on the right track. So with that being said, I'll see you guys later. Remember to have good posture while you're mixing, like I didn't that entire video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.